Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter back with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe. Back after a couple weeks off, getting back to the world of sports. Have got a little vacation, a little respite, little getting back ready to attack as the NFL teams are in doing their OTAs, and we're getting ready for football season to start winding up as the summer camps come together. We got a little baseball going on. We got the hockey playoffs. We got the NBA, and we got a lot going on. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing good, sir. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Missed you, but we, it's good that you got away. Got a little week at the shore with you and your family. Saw the pictures, looking great, and looks like you had a great time.
Yeah, man, we got to come up to your neck of the woods and spend a little time in the city. Couldn't get out of there fast enough, and then I like New York City for like 2 days, and then I'm like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I don't know how people live there. It's crazy to me. I mean, I'm like, dude, this was all these people, all this stuff. It was fun for about 24 hours, and then I was ready to go. But then we hit the beach up, and that's my joint right there. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'll never understand the people that commute for 2 hours to go into that city, live at that pace for 8 hours, whatever time they're working in the city, and then get another 2 hours driving home. I mean, I don't know how they do it without, having road rage and killing people on the way home. I just don't know, because it's the city. It does. When you walk into New York City, you automatically walk faster, talk faster, become ruder. It's just
oh, yeah. No, we got off the plane and we drove to my sister's building because she picked us up, and we're parking her car underneath her building, and I get out and I'm helping my daughter out of her car seat, and this lady starts yelling at me, telling me to get out of the way because they're bringing her car around. I'm like, can I get my 4-year-old out of her car seat? I got to get out of here. I'm late. How is that my fault that you're late, lady?
Yeah, like, exactly.
I'm like, I've been here 2 minutes and this lady's yelling at me. I'm like, welcome back to the city that never sleeps.
Well, the city that's never can stop being rude too. So I mean, that's a bit about it. But I grew up an hour outside of it, but I still don't go into it that much. I used to go in there a lot, not so much anymore. Maybe as you get older, you just don't want to do it anymore. But we have a lot to get to. Want to talk? We want to do a little bit of maybe a little baseball cleaning up, talking about the two firings of the managers, two former World Series winning managers, and. We've talked about this at length, whether it be at the high school level, college level, and the pro level. And now in every sport, it seems like you got a very short leash to get things done. I mean, we're not even at the All-Star break. And I mean, they don't even give these times for these guys to correct. And I don't know what bringing a new manager in at this point is going to do for either of the programs. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, I get that the Angels were having a losing streak. They're struggling, but if you want to blame somebody, how about the guy that you're paying $44 million a year to, who went on a 0 for 26 streak there, and Mike Trout? I mean, you can't really bring in a ton of talent when you're paying one guy $44 million, and then that guy isn't even hitting the baseball.
Right.
So I don't really know how that's Joe Maddon's fault. But, like you said, these guys won world championships. It's not like they forgot how to manage. But, how good are these teams really? I mean, the first year, when he took over in the shortened season, the Angels were 26-34. His second season, they were 77-85. And this year, they're 27-29. So when he got fired. So, I mean, they've stayed pretty much the same. I guess they're looking for massive improvement, but you got to get players, man. This game is more about Billies or Jimmys and Joes instead of X's and O's when you get to the big leagues, and you got to have a good pitching staff, and you got to have people hitting the baseball.
That's for sure. I mean, and the thing about not to criticize him, but Ohtani this year is not having the MVP year he had last year, and a lot of it has to be with. I'm sorry, my phone's going off for some reason, and I don't know, whatever. Stop. Anyways, hopefully it'll stop in a second. Like you said about the players, also the players got to learn that pitchers learn to adjust to them. They learn where the holes in their swings are. They stay pitch around them. They do different things. And like you said, it's for the other players. If they're not going to pitch to Trout and Ohtani. What I'm watching with the Mets this year, when their stars aren't hitting, other guys are hitting. It's got to be the whole team doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Phillies, and who do they really have? I mean, you got Bryce Harper, who is having a pretty decent year. He's batting 300. I don't know what else you want from him. And then you got Kyle Schwarber, who they brought in, and you got Nick Castellanos. Juan Segura is on the 10-day DL. Camargo's on the DL. I mean, we're not going to get real deep into baseball here, but this isn't like in my opinion, this isn't like a World Series winning roster. I mean, I just don't see what they thought they were going to do. They thought, the Phillies thought they were going to win the World Series this year. I mean, I guess what they're trying to do is motivate the team to make the playoffs or something. I don't know, but I just would think that Joe Girardi would have a better chance than some guy off the street. The guy's won a World Series before, so I think he could potentially get you to the playoffs. And who's to say that the bats don't heat up after the All-Star break? I mean, like you said, it's June 9th, and these guys have been fired for a few days, so I don't really understand why you make the move now. At least see if they can get rolling, or get out of this funk before the All-Star break, or see what happens after the All-Star break. I don't know. I just don't get the timing of this.
Well, the other thing is there's only, I think, 10 teams in Major League Baseball right now with over 500 records. 10. And they have expanded playoffs this year. So there's plenty of time. They always talk about it being a marathon. There's plenty of time and plenty of teams that are struggling or underachieving right now. And some of them don't have the wherewithal, the Kansas Cities, the Baltimores, the Cincinnatis, to make a run. But those other teams do have, like you said, the Phillies have some players, the Angels have some players, where if they get on a hot streak and these other teams start discarding the few players they do have, you can add to yourself. So why are you giving up on the two experienced managers now for unknowns? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, the Angels are in second place in the West, and the Phillies are in third place, separated from second place by 2 games.
Right.
I mean, so it's not like these guys are in dead last and, making a mockery of the situation. They're, a couple games back of either second or first place. So I don't really understand this, and I'd much rather have. I mean, I'm not even a huge fan of either of those guys, but I would rather have them pushing the buttons than some interim guy who knows whether or not he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. One thing before we get on to the NBA playoffs, we're going to do a little NBA here a little bit. I don't know. Your boy from Duke, my God, JJ Redick, he's getting a little cranky, ain't he?
Buddy, I like him.
He's picking fights with Bob Cousy. Now he's all over Stephen A. Smith. Now he's all over the players of the 80s and 90s. I mean, JJ Redick's just taking on all comers.
I like him. I actually think he does a really – I don't know if you've heard him call any of these games, but he called a bunch of games this year, and I thought he did a really good job. I love the fact that he called out Stephen A. Smith. That guy is a complete idiot and never played a game of basketball in his life. I think JJ Redick knows a little bit more than him, and he's making a name for himself. He's got his own podcast, which is doing really well. He's on ESPN every day. He's calling games. I mean, JJ's making more money off the court than he made on, and hell, he was making $12 million last year. So this guy made $115 million career earnings in the NBA, and he's making more money now. So good for him.
Well, it's funny. I was driving around yesterday, and I was listening to one of the local ESPN shows, Michael Kay, and he spent the whole afternoon defending Stephen A. Smith. And I'm like sitting there going, first of all, let's flip this coin a little bit. I understand they're like, well, Stephen A. Smith's paid to give a take. Well, yeah, and he gives his take and doesn't bother him that he says stuff about players. And now when it comes back on him, you're going to defend him like these players don't have a right to fight back. I mean, I don't agree with Kevin Durant jumping in and jumping out. You know, Kevin Durant's just annoyed me a lot with his tweeting and stuff. I mean, he's got to grow a thicker skin.
Well, yeah, and the whole thing was about Russell Westbrook. He attended the press conference of the Lakers' new coach, Darvin Ham, being introduced, and Stephen A. said that he didn't like it that he was there, and JJ Redick and I believe the other guy was CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
Were like, why do you care? You know, why do you care that he's there? I mean, they're like, he's a member of the team. He's trying to show his support for the new coach. You know, why do you care that he's there? And I think they felt like he was jumping all over Westbrook for no reason. And honestly, he was.
Well, first of all, if you're going to make a big deal out of that, you go to Laker brass and you ask them, why is he there?
Yeah.
Obviously, he was invited by the Laker brass. So obviously, either they don't have an intention of trading him at this time, or they haven't found a suitor, so they have to. He is still part of the family, and he may be part of their team next year. So he did what he's supposed to do.
Yeah,
like you said.
And then he's backpedaling, and he says, "Well, his criticism was more at the Lakers than Westbrook, because if they're trying to move him, why was he there?" And it was like, well, that's not what you said. You said that you didn't like him being there, and he's on the team. So, and maybe they asked him to be there. So if you're criticizing the Lakers, then criticize the Lakers, because that's not what you did. So, he gets called out, and then he starts backpedaling, and it's like, I don't know. If you're going to have these takes, you should be able to, and you're going to criticize everybody, you should be able to accept some criticism yourself.
Well, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's just, and it's all about nothing. It's like, why are we, first of all, he doesn't play the game. Why are we worried about an announcer? I mean, it's kind of like when they talk about, political people now, how Walter Cronkite used to give the news, walk away, you figure out what you want to do with it. The announcers today want to be as much a part of the game, or as much as the game be about them as about the players.
Oh yeah.
And that's where they're losing, sensible sports fans.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if you heard about what happened down here, but there was a situation where one of the Tennessee's the number one ranked team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
They won. They finished the season ranked number one. They won the SEC, which is the best college baseball conference in the country. They won the tournament. They were ranked number one going into the World Series here. They won the first round and the second round of the region. And then the third round, one of their players didn't play. Well, some Arkansas fan went on the internet and posted that the reason he wasn't playing was because he failed a drug test, and that the whole team is going to be tested for PEDs on Saturday. Well, this announcer for ESPN rolls with this story and starts talking about it during the broadcast.
Wow.
Not knowing that some 15-year-old kid had made it up. And he starts telling everyone on the broadcast of the game. And then he comes back and they found out that it's all made up, that the guy was sick or something, and that's why he wasn't playing, and that he didn't fail any tests and no one else had to take any test. And so that kid, when they asked him, he said, I made that up and was trying to be funny. And so then the broadcaster apologized and all this. And I'm like, apology? I mean, that you could ruin this kid's career if they start labeling him a steroid user. And that's what these guys have become, though. They see these stories. They want to be the first to report it.
Right.
They want to be the one that puts this new information out, whether it's correct or not. They want to be the first ones to do it, and they want to get the most clicks. And that's all anyone cares about. They don't even care whether what they're talking about is actually factual or not.
Journalistic integrity out the window. So it's nuts. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, the way these things get thrown out there, and like I said, maybe we don't need as much access as these guys are supposedly getting. I mean, these insiders. I don't know where their inside information comes from, but some of it is just like totally crazy. And sticking on the NBA, we're now in the We're 3 games into the final, and we were talking about it coming on the air. For me, who I'm not a big NBA guy, I'm more NCAA and I'm more NHL hockey. It doesn't seem to have the juice, even though they're 2 big-time teams in this. I mean, and like you said, and we talked about this, Steph Curry, and many people that love him, there's a big faction of people who don't like him. And, the whole Golden State Warrior, Steve Kerr, things like that. And then you have Boston, which is probably them and the Lakers are the 2 most storied franchises in NBA history when you go back 40 years, 50 years. And they have 2 good young players. Tatum's a great young player. And they've got a team that wasn't supposed to be here, and yet it doesn't seem to be stirring national interest. I'm asking you, does the commissioner now do as good a job selling the NBA as David Stern did? Is that one reason maybe why? Or is it because they don't sell their stars like David Stern did?
I think that's part of it. I mean, they don't sell these stars. I mean, they're not marketing. Jason Tatum's one of the best young players in the NBA, and he doesn't get marketed like he should. I mean, he's not talked about like he should. He was first team All NBA, All Star, leading his team to the charge. I mean, this guy should be talked about more, and he's not. I think the NBA kind of leans on their older guys a little bit too much, instead of focusing on the here and now. And the here and now is this Celtics team, and I think they're the story of the NBA this year. I mean, you look at these guys who were under 500 in January, and the turnaround that they made is just remarkable in my opinion. And I have to be the first to admit, when last year ended, they got rid of Danny Ainge. We heard that Brad Stevens was going to be fired, or something was going to happen, and then they didn't fire him, but promoted him to the general manager, and then hired this guy who'd never been a head coach before. I got to admit, I was like, what in the heck are they doing?
We talked about it at length.
It was a great move. It was a great move, and these players really bought in. The chemistry on this team is tremendous. Going and getting Al Horford basically for nothing from Oklahoma City and bringing him back. A lot of people thought Al Horford was done 3 years ago. Well, let me tell you, he's not. He's the reason they won Game 1. And then he was instrumental last night, 11 points and 8 rebounds and 6 assists. That's a pretty good game from a guy who's your 4th or 5th option. And, you got that tandem of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are, 2 all-stars. And then you've got, Marcus Smart and Al Horford, backing those 2 guys up. There's a reason why this team is in the finals.
But then again, back to Adam Silver as compared to David Stern. At this time of the year, David Stern was on all the talk shows. I mean, he was out there selling their final. He was out there promoting the players. He'd be out there talking about Jason Tatum. He'd be out there on ESPN. He'd be on the Today Show. He'd be on the Tonight Show. He'd be on anywhere that he could get out there and make sure people were tuning into his final. He was doing that. And I don't think Adam Silver does that. And I think he's kind of trying to let the game sell itself. And I think one of the problems, years ago when they made the conscious effort to make it an international brand, they kind of lost a couple, not to be jingoistic or anything, but they lost some of the American public to that because they weren't selling it to the American public. And I think Adam Silver's got to get back out there. I don't know if he has the personality like David Stern had for it, but he's got to get back out there on all these talk shows and start selling his brand.
Well, I think that's one of the big problems is that guy has about as much personality as a glass of water. And then he's out there, pushing the Brittany Griner thing more than he is. I've seen him on news shows talking about the Brittany Griner situation more than he is talking about the finals.
Right.
And I understand they're trying to help this girl out, and as well they should. But you got to focus on the task at hand, which is getting the NBA back, where it should be, and getting these finals into everybody's homes. I mean, they've got to improve these numbers because the ratings have not been where they should be. The other thing is, I'm not sure I'm in love with how they broadcast these games now. I mean, you've got some of the games on ESPN, the Eastern Conference, you got the Western Conference on TNT, and then, occasionally they'll put a game on ABC, but then you got to stream it. It's just hard, in my opinion, to kind of find where these games are, and they should just make it easier to find the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals and put it out there for everybody to see, because they are still playing some good basketball. I mean, it's not like these teams are a joke. I think they've had a pretty good playoff run, and I think this finals could shore up to be a pretty good finals.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you, that's a good point you bring up, because it's only getting more complicated now with Peacock and all this. I don't know if you know what's going on with Peacock with their Sunday morning thing.
Yeah,
where they start at 11 o'clock in the morning, and every baseball game for the rest of the day has to be moved back, cannot start before 1:30, because they own all the rights between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
The only way they do that package. But you have people, I don't want to talk about the economy, but how many different streaming networks do you think people can afford to have? I mean, for one game or two games, it's really, and they make it more and more complicated to see the teams you want to see. And in baseball, it's a crime, because they play 162 games. I mean, football, you play 17 weeks, but I mean, my God, what they make for people trying to find the Yankees are the worst. Some are on Prime, some are on Yes. They have their own network. They're ignoring their own network.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. No, that's what I'm saying. I think that's one of the reasons that the ratings aren't as high, is that they've got these games split off on different streaming services and on different networks. And it's just, used to be you turn your TV on and you go to ABC and there were the games. And now it's not like that. They put some on cable. They put some on, ESPN, and sometimes you got to have cable to get it. With the way that the economy is right now, and people are having to pick and choose between food and going out and gas and buying toys for their kids. I mean, you're having to make these difficult choices. And as you mentioned, there's so many streaming services. People are starting to cut these streaming services out of their lives.
Right.
And the more difficult you make it to find these games, the less people that are going to watch them.
And the other thing about it is also the level of the broadcasters. I mean, with the Super Bowl, it alternates, but you know who the number one team is on every network, and you watch it, and the number one team does every game, so you get to know them. The level of the broadcast, some guys are better than others, some guys are worse than others, and everything, they all try to have their little nuances to it when you jump back and forth between the stations, so it's not just cookie cutter. And sometimes it's annoying. You like to hear the same voice telling you the same story, so you're used to it. You know what I mean?
No, that's definitely true. But getting back to the series itself, I think this is a pretty good matchup. I mean, if you think about it, you've got the Warriors, who have been one of the most dominant teams in the West for almost a decade now. I mean, they've been winning championships, playing for championships all over the board the last 5 to 8 years. And this is I think one of their last shots to get it done here.
Yeah.
I mean, Steph Curry's not getting any younger. Draymond's not getting any younger. Klay Thompson, one more injury, that guy's done. Let's be honest. I mean, it's amazing that he's playing as well as he is right now. Andre Iguodala is 49 years old.
Yeah.
They've got some nice young talent mixed in here, but I just think that the door is closing. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see whether they can, hang with the Celtics, going deep into a series like this, who are the younger team. And, really, as we saw last night, if Marcus Smart and Al Horford and Grant Williams or Derek White Jr. off the bench can contribute anything to this team, the Warriors have a tough time keeping up with them, because you've already got Tatum and Brown. You've already got, Marcus Smart hitting some threes. If you can get some of those other guys to contribute, Williams had 8 points and 10 boards last night. As I mentioned, Horford had 11 and 8 and 6. The Golden State doesn't have any big guys to contend with those two. So if they can give you something down low and get you some points in the paint, they're going to have a hard time beating them. And the Celtics need to keep that formula of going to the basket. I know they want to shoot threes because that's where the game is these days, But really, the Celtics have the 2 games they've won. They've owned the down low. They've owned the paint, and that's how they've gotten their 2 victories. And if they can do that, I think they can win this series.
Is this going to be, do you think, and it's hard to foresee the future, but I mean, when it was Garnett and Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, they were already along in their careers. Tatum and Brown are very young, so your two building blocks are very young. Could this be? Do you get the feeling this is the start of a Celtic run? Not that they're going to reel off 11 out of 13 championships like they did in the 60s, but this could be the start of a Bird, McHale, Parrish era where they were good for like a decade, or is this kind of going to be that outside liar thing where they're one shot at it?
I think they have a chance. It's just the game is so different nowadays, where guys change teams so much, more fluently than they used to. But the fact is, they've got Jaylen Brown wrapped up through 2024 at least. They've got, they have their other big gun, the other young guy, Tatum, wrapped up. And so they have those 2 pieces that if they can just build around those 2 guys and keep this coach around, I mean, he's done a really good job this year. If he can, continue doing what he's done this year and become a consistently good head coach, I think the Celtics could be a force in the East. I mean, think about it. LeBron's not going back to Cleveland. So, I think, what's he got left? Maybe a year or 2. So the East is kind of up for grabs. I mean, you got to battle Giannis and the Bucks, but, they beat the Bucks. Think of what the Celtics did in this playoffs. They beat the Nets. They beat the Bucks, and then they beat the number 1 seed, the Heat. So the 3 big teams in the East, the Celtics beat all of them to get here to the finals. So I think that really showed everybody something, and I think the Celtics are the real deal and are here to stay if they can keep these young guys under contract. And right now they've got them.
Well, right now they're up 2-1, so we'll see if they can keep it going. We're going to turn the corner and get into a little NFL. We're going to look at the odds that came out on over-unders. And let me pull up what I got here. And what they think out in Vegas of what they're doing. They may only turn this thing off. And he scored. Eesh. All right. Let me see if I can get this without sound going off like this. All right. We'll start out. Buccaneers, 11.7 wins. That's the number 1 team. What do you think?
They're the number 1 ranked team?
Yeah.
Whew. Man, that's giving Tommy a lot of credit. I mean, I guess he did have a pretty good year last year. And I look at their division and, you got to think Carolina, not really impressing me. Atlanta, they're obviously in a rebuild and they're admitting it. Tampa really didn't lose a whole lot. They lost one of their running backs, but they kept Leonard Fournette. They added a running back in the draft. They still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They also added Russell Gage. They kept the offensive line intact. The defense is what really has been keeping them going. I like the addition of Akeem Hicks. I'm going to say over. I'm going to say they're going to win 12 or 13 games in the regular season. Does that translate into a Super Bowl victory? I don't know, but I think with the teams in their division, I can see them winning that many games. I can see them winning 12.
Their first 4 games are going to kind of dictate where they go. They start at Dallas, at New Orleans, versus Green Bay at home, and then versus Kansas City at home. So they get out of that 3-1. They'll be looking pretty damn good.
I mean, even if they go 2-2 there, then they go into divisional play where they play Atlanta, they play Carolina. They've got Pittsburgh and Baltimore mixed in there, so they do play The AFC North, I think, is the division that they play. Kind of the one that they're pitted against, where they play all those teams. They play Pittsburgh, they play Cincinnati, they play Baltimore, they play Cleveland. So, it's going to depend on how good that division is, because if they can't beat all four of those teams, then that could make that 12 games kind of tough.
Yeah. And then the second team they've got is the Rams, 11.5, just a little bit behind the Buccaneers, but I mean they got to be even with them. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Rams are. I mean, who did the Rams lose? I mean, really nobody. I mean, they've got
OBJ.
Everybody. Yeah, and they replaced him with Allen Robinson, who I think is better. So I think the Rams are. I'm going with the over on that. I can see the Rams winning 12 games pretty easily with the guys they brought back, and now you got Aaron Donald wrapped up for 3 years. You've got Cooper Kupp wrapped up. Matthew Stafford's going to be, I think, even more comfortable in year 2 with this system. And I mean, that's what people don't even realize. That was year 1 under Sean McVay. And I think in year 2, you're going to see improvement out of Matthew Stafford. And that's kind of scary to think about, because he was pretty damn good last year. And I loved the addition of your boy from Notre Dame, Kyron Williams, added to the mix. Now you got Cam Akers, you got Darrell Henderson, and the young boy, Kyron Williams. I think the running game is going to be better.
And we know McVay loves the running game.
Yep.
Third team, they got Green Bay, 11.1. I think this is by default, basically. I think everybody looks at that division and says, well, the Bears aren't ready. The Lions aren't ready. The Vikings aren't ready. So that's 6 victories. All you got to do is come up with 5 of the other 5 more victories, and they got 11 wins. What do you think?
I'm taking the under on this one. I'm not sold on this team. I mean, I think they're really downplaying losing their number 1 wide receiver. I mean, they didn't want to lose him. They offered him a ton of money. They just couldn't match the offer that the Raiders were able to provide. And, I think that's going to be a big problem. I mean, I look at this wide receiver core, and I know that Aaron Rodgers is going to elevate these guys' game, but you're talking about, 35-year-old Randall Cobb. You're talking about Alan Lazard. You're talking about Sammy Watkins. I mean, are you kidding me? Sammy Watkins is going to be your replacement for the number 1 wide receiver in the entire NFL? I don't think so. And then, Robert Tunyon's coming off an injury. David Bakhtiari, their big-time left tackle, he's still not right. So I'm worried a little bit about their offensive line, and I'm really concerned about those wide receivers. And, their defense doesn't really blow me away. So I've got some question marks on this Green Bay team. And, can Aaron Rodgers keep doing what he's been doing? I don't know. And I'm thinking the Vikings are a little bit better. I think that the Bears are going to be a little bit better. I think the Lions are a little bit better. So I'm going to take the under. I think they go 10-7.
All right, next is the Philadelphia Eagles, 9.8 wins, so basically 10 wins. You added A.J. Brown to give Jalen Hurts somebody to work with. They were an impressive team, actually, last year, the Eagles, for a lot of cases. But what do you think about them this year?
Yeah, I'm going to go over on them. I'm all in, man. You know me. I love Jalen Hurts. I make no stinks about it. This guy is the real deal. He's a winner. He's all about football. He's all about winning. They got Zach Pascal from the Colts. They got A.J. Brown, like you mentioned. They've got Devontae Smith in year 2. They signed up Dallas Goedert. They've kind of really solidified that offensive line. And then the defense, I think, has gotten better. I like TJ Edwards. I like the pickup of Hassan Reddick. And that secondary is going to be better with the addition of James Bradbury to go opposite of Darius Slay. So, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Derek Barnett, all still there. You've got Josh Sweat and Jordan Davis, the rookie, also added to the mix. I think this Eagles team is going to be legit. And I think the coach proved last year that he knows what he's doing. And I had some question marks about him, but I feel better about him after watching him in year 1. And I think this Eagles team is going to sneak up on some people, especially with the division they play in. I think they've got a chance to win it.
And Bradbury hurts me to hell to have to lose him within the division. That was, what I didn't want to see.
Yeah,
next in the NFC, we got the Dallas Cowboys, of course, just a little bit behind the Eagles, 9.6. Dallas is always the weird. On paper, you sit there and you think they would have won a Super Bowl every year, it seems. And I don't know. It was funny. I was reading one article this week where they picked the 25 best GMs in the history of the NFL, and they named Jerry Jones. And I was like, well, that just says to me there hasn't been a lot of good GMs in NFL history, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he did some decent things when he first took the team over, but that was when he actually had a GM helping him. Yeah. So since he's taken over all those duties, it's gotten kind of bleak, and they haven't won many Super Bowls since Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin left town. So I don't know, man. They've got a difficult schedule. As you mentioned, they opened the season with Tampa Bay. And then they play Cincinnati in week 2. So that's two, they could easily be 0-2 traveling to your New York Giants in week 3. So then they've got the Rams in week 5. I'm going to take the under. I think they go 9-8 and, are right on the bubble of making the playoffs.
It's funny, all I have to say, anybody who says to me that Jerry Jones is a great GM, all I have to say is 2 words: Dave Campo.
Yeah, no, Dave was not great. And you know what? I've got to be honest. I was a little concerned with Dak Prescott at the end of the season last year. I mean, he just didn't look right to me. And, I just expected him to get better and kind of take over and lead this team. And you know what? He looked like he struggled a little bit towards the end of the season. And I haven't seen anything from him to show me that he can win a Super Bowl with this team. And if things don't go right in Big D, we know what happens. Everybody starts talking about it. They lose 1 or 2 games here or there, and all of a sudden that's all anyone's talking about, and that can get in your head real quick.
That's for sure. Next, they got the San Francisco 49ers. They're picking them for a wild card, 9 wins, 9.5. This is all coming down to the quarterback and whether Deebo Samuel will be playing the year in a bad mood or what. I don't understand the Deebo Samuel situation. I know he wants to get paid. I think they will pay him. I know he was their whole offensive team last year, but I don't understand where he thinks he's going to go and get a better, I guess it's got to be about the money. And Trey Lance, I don't know why. I take it over. I can't. This team we've talked about a lot, and I don't know what to think of it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to tell you. You got Jimmy Garoppolo coming off of surgery. Obviously, if they were sold on Trey Lance, they would have already traded away Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, that's just a fact. If they thought that he was ready, if they thought that Trey Lance was their quarterback and they were 100% all in on him, Jimmy Garoppolo wouldn't be there. Well, he's still there. So that leads me to believe that they're kind of waiting for Jimmy to get healthy. I think this is how I think it plays out. I think they start Trey Lance to begin the season. If training camp and preseason goes as they hope, I think they'll start him out and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, they'll be like, well, Jimmy's healthy, Trey's struggling a little bit, we're going to go to Jimmy. But you know what? This guy knows how to run the football up there. And that's what they're going to do first, regardless of who the quarterback is. They're going to run the ball. They've got Elijah Mitchell, who is unreal as a rookie. Trey Sermon still hasn't really played. They've still got Jeff Wilson Jr. in that backfield, not to mention Tyron Davis-Prince from LSU. So they've got 4 really good running backs. And then, Deebo is another running back. So they really have 6 pretty good running backs if you include Trey Lance. So they're going to run the football first, and people are going to have to stop them from running the ball. And I think just with them running the ball, they're going to win at least 9 games because they're tough to stop. It's just going to come to be, can their defense stay healthy? That's been their biggest problem the last couple of years. Last year the defense got healthy at the right time, and they rode them all the way to the championship game. So if the defense can stay healthy, I think they can do it again. I think 9 wins is about right. I don't know if I'm ready to go 10 or 11 with Trey Lance as their quarterback, but I think 9 sounds about good to me.
All right, here's another. This is a major improvement. I mean, it's kind of an indictment of Mike Zimmer. The Minnesota Vikings, 8.9 wins, basically 9 wins, and they're betting on them getting in on a wild card. They do, I guess it's around week 10. they got to go to Buffalo, followed with a home game against Dallas and home against New England, which they're saying is going to be kind of a tough patch for them right in the middle of the season. What do you think about Minnesota?
Yeah, I like this team. I liked this team last year. Remember, in the preseason, I picked them to win it, to win their division, and they didn't. They kind of let me down. But I think now that they got Zimmer out of there, and they've made this team better, in my opinion. I mean, you've got Alexander Madison as a pretty good backup in case something happens to Dalvin Cook. He's obviously your workhorse. He's one of the top 5 running backs in the league, in my opinion. Plus, they drafted Ty Chandler in the draft as well. And then you got Justin Jefferson, you got Thielen, you've got a young rising star in KJ Osborne. I like the draft pick of Jalen Naylor out of Michigan State. Christian Darrisaw proved that he could potentially be a decent lineman, and they're going to throw him out there at left tackle. If he can hold up and this defense can play better, I think 9 wins is doable, especially if Green Bay takes that step back. So I'm kind of agreeing with Vegas on this one. I think Minnesota can win 9 games for sure.
All right, next, Arizona Cardinals, 8.7 wins. This is the team that started out so well last year and then just blew it at the end. Now, if I'm reading this here right, DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games of the season.
That's correct.
And then they start out facing the Chiefs, Raiders, Rams. And then in the 5th week, they got the Eagles.
Yes.
What do you think about that to start the season?
I think that's a tough schedule. I think that's a really tough schedule. And, I got to admit, Kyler Murray the guy's more concerned about his contract than he is, being there and winning games. So that concerns me too. And then, they lost one of their big running backs from last year. James Conner played really well, but it was kind of a 2-headed monster with their running game. One of their running backs, whose name is escaping me right now, Chase Edmonds, he went to Miami. And so you really only have Conner back there as your main bell cow running back. And that was kind of, what really kept that team going. And they traded for, they gave up a lot to get Marquise Brown. And I got to be honest, he underperformed, in my opinion, for the Ravens. So you got an aging AJ Green. They did re-sign Zach Ertz, but I think they take a step back, and I'm going to take the under on the Cardinals.
All right, next, New Orleans, 8.4 wins. Jameis Winston's coming. I hear there's somebody was saying, and it could just be, stuff on the internet, that he's limping a little bit in the OTAs and stuff. But I mean, who knows? That can correct itself. They've got plenty of time before the beginning of the season. They do have a tough stretch where they're going to they got the Bengals, Raiders, Ravens, Rams, and 49ers between week 6 and 12. That's kind of a little bit of a lion's den to be walking into. 8 wins with a new coach. I mean, I don't know. I was Sean Payton. I maybe not worry so much. Dennis Allen, maybe a little bit worrisome here.
Yeah, I'm kind of high on the Saints, honestly. I think Jameis is going to come back, and I think by the time the season begins, I think he's going to be all right. Plus, they have Andy Dalton. I mean, Andy Dalton's not my favorite quarterback, but can he start 2 or 3 games if need be and, go 2-1, maybe go 4 games, go 2-2, 3-1? I think he can. And then you got Alvin Kamara, you got Mark Ingram, you got Tony Jones Jr. That's good enough to get the running game going. But my biggest thing is the signing of Jarvis Landry and the drafting of Chris Olave, plus potentially Michael Thomas coming back, and you still got Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith, whoever the hell is back there at quarterback. They're finally going to have somebody to throw the damn ball to. And they really haven't had anybody the last 2 years. I mean, Marquez Callaway, played pretty well when forced to be out there. But think about that. Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, one of the most decorated wide receivers in Ohio State in Big Ten history, and Michael Thomas potentially being back. And then you got Adam Troutman after a couple years under his belt, and Taysom Hill at tight end. Plus this offensive line. I know they lost Teron Armstead, but they've got everybody else back. And then they drafted Trevor Penning and have James Hurst, who will battle it out for left tackle. I think this team's going to be just fine. And I'm going to take the over. I think they're going to win at least 9 games.
All right. Washington Commanders. According to this, they say they have a great schedule, very favorable. and it's all going to depend on Carson Wentz. 7.8 wins, which means they're borderline. I mean, if you're picking 7, you could see where maybe they could steal 2, get 9, and be a playoff team. What do you think about the Commanders?
Carson Wentz is obviously a question mark, but if he struggles, they still have Tyler Heineke and they drafted Sam Howell, so they're going to put whoever will do the best for them. I like what they did. Wide receiver, they've got Terry McLaurin locked up now. They've got Curtis Samuel, who will hopefully be healthy, and then they drafted Jahan Dotson. So I like the wide receivers better. My biggest question mark is the defense. This defense was supposed to be their strong point last year.
Yeah.
Their defensive line is supposed to be the heart of their team, and they just really didn't play that well. Chase Young's coming off that injury. They drafted in the first round Chase Young, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. All those guys are first round draft picks. That should be the hallmark of this team. And really last year they weren't as dominant as they should be. So that worries me a little bit. I'm going to go the under on this team because I just don't trust Carson Wentz. And honestly, I don't really trust that defense. Even though, I like their coach, I just don't know what to think about this team. And with all the disaster that's been going on in Washington for so long, who knows what the hell's going to happen there with this
Daniel
team.
Snyder, I'm one of those guys who, you think about it, how can you tell somebody he has to sell his team? But I mean, with all the scandals surrounding Washington since he's been in charge of it, and I know if you go back in the history of the Washington Redskins when they were around, their racial policies against black athletes and stuff like that, there were no walk in the park back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But since Daniel Snyder's gotten there, it may not be about race, but it's about everything else, and it's crazy. So
it's just been a disaster, one thing after another, and it's hard to really focus when no one's even asking you about football questions when it comes to the press. I mean, it's just everything else is thrown in these guys' face, and it makes it difficult to get focused on the task at hand.
And then you had Jack Del Rio had to get involved in the politics this week. It's like, would you just shut up, Jack? Just stick to defense. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you would say that. I mean, if he didn't think that that was going to be made into a big deal, then he's an idiot, because I knew once he said that, I was like, whether or not you think that he's right or wrong, someone's going to make a huge deal of this. And now they're calling for him to be fired. It's just another thing that I'm talking about with Washington. It never ends.
I know, and it's like, do you understand where you are? You're in Washington. It's not, maybe if you said that in Denver, it goes away. You're in Washington. You're in where it's happening. Stop it.
Well, yeah. All right, why do you want to? You're the assistant coach. Why do you want to bring a ton of attention on yourself right now? I mean, if you want to talk about your team, go for it. But why would you even talk about that when you've got cameras in your face? I don't understand.
All right, this is the last NFC team we're going to do in depth because I just want to get into, because it's kind of surprising, but I kind of like it. Detroit, 7 wins, 7.4 wins. Now the only thing that I find kind of strange in the logic here, and I know it has nothing to do with the way they come up with these odds and stuff, is the fact that, okay, if Detroit's going to have 7 and the Vikings are going to have 9 and the Green Bay's going to have 11, how are you going to do that math?
No, that's a great point. I mean, they can't all win 10 games because they're playing each other over and over again. So, that's a great point. And, Jamison Williams, who they drafted number 11 overall, who knows when he's going to be out on the field. I mean, I don't think he's going to be ready for the start of the season. He tore his knee in the championship game in February.
Right.
I mean, that was a couple of months. That was 4 months ago. There's no way he's going to be ready to start the season. And that guy's probably the best wide receiver on that team. So, and Jared Goff, I'm not, my feelings on him. I like him. He's a good guy. Is he a guy that I think can really pull the Lions out of the depths of the NFC? No. I'm going to take the under on this. I think they're a 5 or 6 win team, regardless of what anybody else says.
All right, without getting into specifics, we're going to go. They got the Giants 6.5, which to me would be a great improvement in the first year of the Daboll era. 6.5 over under.
Yeah, I mean, if they can win 6.5 games, I'll give the coach some credit, especially with the questions still surrounding that quarterback position. I mean, the offense has to get better, regardless of what happens on defense. They've got to score more points, and they have to do better with the possessions that they get, and they got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback. So if they can win 6 or 7 games, I mean, that'd be good, but then they won't be able to draft a quarterback if Daniel Jones doesn't play good. So, you kind of six one way, half a dozen another there, Joe.
Yeah, I know, but you gotta. I want to win whenever we win. So, all right, the Bears 6.1.
Man, I got to be honest. I really, as much as I love and as much as I trust in Justin Fields, I just don't see it, man. I don't know where any of these wins are going to come from. I hate their wide receiver core. I think it's garbage. I think their offensive line is one of the worst in the league. I think they're setting up Mr. Fields for failure. And the defense, I mean, their best player is Khalil Mack, and they traded him away. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing there. And I think they're going to have trouble getting to that number. I'm going to go under with them.
All right, the last ones are all Atlanta, Seattle, and the Carolina Panthers all at 5. And
Yeah.
I'd say all of them are pretty much under.
Yeah, I'd take under with all those guys.
All right, let's go over to the AFC. Let's see if I can pull these up. Whoops. Wherever they are.
I'm going to guess that the Buffalo Bills are number 1. Is that correct?
I find it here. I'm having trouble finding it here. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to come back to that next week, do the AFC. I don't know where it is. I don't want to hold people on top. Let me see if I can find it.
I got it right in front of me if you want me to tell you.
Yeah, go ahead. You go for it.
All right.
My opinions.
Okay. We can both give our opinions. Yeah. But yeah, they've got the Buffalo Bills at 11.5. So that's basically 12 wins for the Bills. You tell me, what do you think about the Bills? You think they're going to win 12?
I think they're over that. I would say they're about 13. I mean, I think the Bills are ready. I mean, if you go back to the playoffs, if they had more time, they might have won it. Who knows? I mean, Dable is going to take a pop, him being gone, but Josh Allen's been around. He's established. So,
well, yeah, and they promoted, the quarterbacks coach, Ken Dorsey, to the offensive coordinator. So it's not like they're starting over. They're going to run the same system. All these guys know what they're doing. I really like the additions of James Cook and Duke Johnson to that backfield.
Yeah.
Now you've got Devin Singletary, you've got Zach Moss, you've got Duke Johnson, you've got James Cook. Between the 4 of them and Josh Allen, you should be able to run the football. Then you've got Case Keenum backing up Josh Allen in case anything happens to him. I like that. I love the addition of O.J. Howard at tight end. I think this team got better, so I'm definitely going with the over. Plus, you got Greg Rousseau in year 2, A.J. Epinesa, Boogie Basham. I like the youth on the D line. I think this team's going to win at least 13 or 14 games.
And what we always said, or at least you've always said, is you didn't like their running game because Singletary didn't strike you as the guy that could be the every down guy. Doesn't matter anymore. You got 4 guys now. If Correct. He can't pick it up, you're kind of doing it the Patriot way, which is cool.
I like it. I like those 4 guys plus Josh Allen. Can run it when he has to. So you've got those 4 guys plus Allen. That's 5 running options. I think the running game is going to be able to help this team out and take some of the pressure off of the passing game, which is just going to make them even better.
All right, who we got number 2?
All right,
Kansas City.
We got Kansas City. Kansas City they have here at 10.5, which I think is kind of surprising to me, considering, this team. I mean, what do you think about 10.5 in Kansas City?
See, the whole thing about Kansas City, the reason I say it's a 10.5 is, and as we said, maybe I'm really being stupid here because as we proved with Green Bay, the Lions, and the Vikings, they don't even care about how many times they face each other. But I think it's kind of the Charger effect, the fact that Denver should be better this year, and the Raiders. It won't be a walk in the park for Kansas City. So I think they're not going to be a 12-win team. I think they're going to be closer down towards the 10-win scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going back and forth on this because I think Tyreek Hill is a big loss. I think they can downplay that all they want, but that guy is a big-time difference maker, and him being gone, I think, is going to affect them. But at the same time, I think they got, they added some good pieces. They added Juju Smith-Schuster. They drafted Sky Moore. They've got Josh Gordon on the roster. They've got Cornell Powell. They've got Justin Ross. Got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So, do they have anybody that's as good as Tyreek Hill? No, but they've got a group of guys that I think can pick up the slack. And then I love the addition of Ronald Jones to the backfield. Now they've got Derek Gore, they've got Ronald Jones, and they've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think that'll help. And the big thing with this team is the defense. Can the defense help this team and get some stops when they need to? And that's the big question. So until I see what the defense can do, I think 10 wins is about right. I'm going to go under on this because I think they're probably looking at about a 10-7 season.
Yeah, I agree totally with that. Who we go next?
Let's go Denver Broncos next because they've got the Denver Broncos at 10.5 as well.
The Russell Wilson effect.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
New coach, Russell Wilson. I mean, I like Russell Wilson, but we saw up in Seattle with all the weapons he had there last year, plus Pete Carroll. Maybe more talent in Denver, but still, what you saw from him last year, he hurt his hand about midway through the season, which didn't help the fact. Yeah, but I thought he was going to be much, much better last year. I don't know if we've seen the best of Russell Wilson right now. I don't know if his best days are behind him. He's 33 now.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't blown away by what he did last year in Seattle, and I don't know if going to Denver, which is a team that had a worse offense, is going to make him better. I don't know. I mean, we'll find out really quickly because it's going to be a lot on his shoulders.
Oh yeah.
I think that they definitely got better at the quarterback position, but I'm not sure that was their only problem when we talk about them last year.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we also know Fangio was not a great coach. So I mean, and they wasted. There's no Von Miller on the defense anymore. I mean, there's plenty of situations where they've got holes too. So
yeah.
Who do we got next?
Next, we got two teams that are tied at 10, and that is, let's talk about, we got the Chargers and the Bengals. Why don't we talk Chargers first because we're in that division.
Yep.
Chargers, I think 10 is doable, but once again, you can't have all these teams winning 10 games. You can't have the Chiefs, the Raiders, all these teams can't win 10 games. So what do you think about the Chargers?
I think the Chargers are in good shape on the field and on their roster. My question is the coach in his head. Didn't he get burned a lot on fourth downs last year?
Yeah, he went for it every time.
Right. I mean, here's a guy who is supposedly one of the good young minds in football. And I'm not sure if he's not holding Justin Herbert back a little bit. I think sometimes it's good to punt and live to fight another day. I mean, I agree fourth downs work, but you got to be a little judicious about it, especially when you're playing the kind of competition they're playing within the division. You can't be giving games away.
No, I agree. I mean, punt the damn ball, man. It's 4th and 10 on your own 30. Punt it to the other team. But I will say I like the moves they made on defense. Bringing in Khalil Mack. If Khalil Mack can just be healthy, I think he's still got some left in the tank. They signed J.C. Jackson from the New England Patriots and brought him in to solidify that other side across from Asante Samuel Jr. If Derwin James can be healthy again, this defense can really do something and
Bosa
be better. And Bosa, I mean, Bosa's been a monster. So I think this defense did get better. It's just going to be a question of, are these teams in this division going to beat the crap out of each other?
I mean, can you imagine if you're a defensive coordinator and you can move Khalil Mack around where he's on Bosa's shoulder one play, across the formation from another play, coming up the middle on a third play? I mean, one of those guys is going to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, they've got a lot of options now and a lot of depth along that defense, which they did not have last year. So I think that's going to help them.
And the Bengals 10 wins, I mean, you would think, I mean, everybody knows about the hangover, especially from the losing team of a Super Bowl, how they don't usually, but they did everything right in getting their offensive line together. That was the biggest thing that held them back last year, why they were such a big surprise. There's another situation where we were very hypercritical of Taylor as a coach, and last year he rides Joe Burrow all the way to the Super Bowl, but everybody's going to try and take Joe Burrow and his weapons away from Chase and those guys away from him. What are the Bengals going to do to surprise people?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore, and it's really going to come down to the coach and what he can do to disguise what he's doing, to mix it up, to do something that they're not expecting. And I just don't have that much faith in this guy. We'll see. I mean, he did take him to the Super Bowl, and you can't take that away from him. But I think it was more a product of the quarterback than it was the coach. And now with them coming off a Super Bowl appearance, they're not going to sneak up on anybody, and they're going to have a tough schedule. So I think I'm going to take the under with the Bengals. I think they're going to have a tougher time this year, even though that offensive line is better.
Another thing is how many of those games came down to their field goal kicker.
Well, how many of those games came down to the wire? I mean, They won a lot of close games coming down the stretch at the end of the season. And then all the games in the playoffs, they were, like you said, a lot of them were field goals, 3 points, overtime. A lot of things went their way, and I just don't see that happening 2 years in a row across the board.
Totally agree with you there. Who do we got after that?
Okay, we got 3 teams. We just talked about Bengals, Broncos, Chargers, all at 10. Well, after that, we got Titans, Ravens, Colts, all at 9.5. Why don't we start with the Titans? Do you think they're going to win 9.5 games?
That's not a stretch for them. I love their coach. I love Vrabel. Derrick Henry's back and healthy, and Derrick Henry was when he wasn't injured last year, they can play the way they want to play. They want to run the ball. They want to run the ball. They want to run the ball, and keep it out of the quarterback's hands where the mistakes happen. So yeah, I think 9 wins is good for them.
I do too. I think in their division, I think they can win 9 games, 10 games easy. I think they can win 10 games. I mean, they won 10 games. They won 12 games last year without Derrick Henry. So this year you got Derrick Henry coming back. You've got Hassan Haskins behind him. You've got Dontrell Hilliard also behind him, who showed us some things. And then, I knew they lost A.J. Brown, but A.J. Brown missed some games last year. And also, they had a big bust with Julio Jones project.
Yeah,
that was just a disaster. And they brought in Robert Woods, who's coming in off an injury. If he can provide something to them, if Treylon Burks, those are the 2 biggest question marks to me. What do they get out of the wide receiver position? Last year, it was kind of A.J. Brown and Westbrook, Akeen, and kind of nothing. If they can get anything out of Robert Woods and get something out of the rookie, I think that helps them a lot, because the running game is going to do what it does. They just have to be able to get some separation with these wideouts. But I think with their defense and with their running game, I can see 10, 11 wins with this squad based on their coach.
If he's got a running game, Tannehill can depend on. If he can depend on their running game, he's a different quarterback.
Yeah. Well, and if he sucks, they can take him out and put the rookie in, because they did draft Malik Willis as well, who, showed some things in his college career. So he's got this guy pushing him. I think that'll make him better. I mean, they didn't just sit there and do nothing. They brought this young kid in, and I think that he took notice, and he's going to push him a little bit.
All right. Who are we going to go do next? The Colts or?
Let's do the Ravens.
Okay. Ravens, I think that's a little light on the Ravens. I think the Ravens are actually going to be better this year. I think, like you say, you pointed out all through, you lose your 3 top running backs before the start of a season, especially the quality running backs they have. And, I mean, what Jackson did with nothing around him for most of the season, and Harbaugh sticking in it, I mean, it showed you the quality of the team it is. So I think they're more towards 12.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, this team was decimated by injuries, 26 guys on injured reserve, including the MVP former MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson. I mean, the fact that they won as many games as they did last year was, to me, an indictment on the status of this this team, this franchise, and this coaching staff. And now to get some of these guys back, I think they're going to, Kyle Hamilton, they got in the draft. I think that was a huge pick. They also drafted Tyler Linderbaum, who was the best interior offensive lineman in the entire draft, in my opinion. They re-signed their fullback, Patrick Ricard, I think, which is huge. Plus, I think they like what they've got at wide receiver right now. They shipped their boy out, Marquise Hollywood Brown, and I think they did that because they trust Rashad Bateman and they like what they've got in Devin Duvernay. So I think this team's going to run the ball. I think this offensive line is just going to be better. And I like the depth on the offensive line. And man, they're going to have J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, all three of those guys paired with Mike Davis and Lamar Jackson. That's 5 guys that are running the football.
I think, and I may be talking about my butthole here, but I would put them as the number 2 team behind the Bills right now.
I do too, especially with the Steelers kind of being a question mark, the Browns being a disaster like they always are, and the Bengals, in my opinion, taking a step back. I think the Ravens are primed to win that division.
Yeah. And now we got the Colts with the Matt Ryan effect. Part of me is rooting for the Colts, basically because of Matt Ryan. I'd like to see him go out on a high note. I know he had to leave Atlanta because they've got too many holes. I mean, he did. I thought he did a pretty amazing job last year, keeping that team afloat for as long as he did. I thought Matt Ryan's best days were behind him, and maybe with Taylor as a running back and Reich as his coach, he could squeeze out one more big run. So I'd say 9-10 games, and I'd say 9 games is good for the Colts.
I agree. I think they're going to push the Titans this year. I really do. I think with Matt Ryan and Paris Campbell supposedly being healthy for once, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, the offensive line being healthy, Phillip Lindsay being added to the backfield with Naheem Hines and Jonathan Taylor. I think this team's going to be good. I like their coach. I like their defense. They added Yannick Ngakoue, which no one's talking about. Kwity Paye is back. This team's going to be right there, and Darius Leonard is one of the best linebackers in the league. I think the Colts are going to surprise some people, in my opinion.
I totally agree. Who do we got after that?
All right, so the last teams that we're going to talk about here are the Dolphins, the Raiders, and the Patriots. The Dolphins are at 9, the Raiders are at 8.5, and the Patriots are at 8.5. What do you think about the Dolphins at 9?
I think that's a little high. I think they're betting on too much with Tua jumping up in class. I think we just lost you, but I'll keep going until you get back. I think Tua is still a question mark, especially with a new coach. And I'm not just saying it because I like Jordan and I hated what they did to him, but I think that's a little high on the Dolphins. They're going to have to face even though they seem to have the Patriots number, that was under Jordan. So I think it's a little high. I think they're more towards a 7-win team than a 9-win team. I just think that's a little high.
I agree, especially with the first-year head coach. I mean, I know they brought in, Tyreek Hill, and they've got Cedric Wilson, and they've got Jalen Waddle, but I'm not 100% sold on that quarterback. And they've got it. They did give him all the weapons. I mean, he's got Chase Edmonds, he's got Sony Michel, they've got Raheem Mostert, they've got Myles Gaskin. I mean, they've got 4 good running backs, and they've got 4 good wide receivers, and they've got Teron Armstead. They should be better, but I just don't know about Tua, and I just don't know about their coach. So we'll see what happens. But I'm just not sold on them yet, and I'm not sure I believe in the Dolphins until I see it.
I agree with Andy Bradford. That was one of the best playoff games ever, the Chiefs Bills.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and then who we going? We're going with the Raiders after this.
Yeah, Raiders and the Patriots both at 8.5. What do you think about the Raiders?
Well, here's Josh McDaniel's second shot at going out to the AFC West and making a name for himself. And he supposedly learned his lesson from his days in Denver. At least he won't have Tim Tebow as his starting quarterback when he gets out there. You got the best wide receiver, as you said, in the NFL right now. But again, you're going to be playing in what should be, if not the toughest, one of the toughest divisions in football. And you're going to have to beat, one of those teams twice and split with the other two at least. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I don't know.
Come up with that.
I don't know, man. I think it's going to be tough. He the first time as a head coach, as Bradford knows, being a Broncos fan, it didn't go well. And, who's to say it's going to go well this time? I don't know. And that's a tough division. I mean, it's going to be a battle every week out there with the Chargers and with the Broncos and with the Chiefs and with the Raiders. So I don't know. All those teams can't win 10 games. I mean, it's not going to happen. And one of them has to take a step back. And I think it's the Raiders. Even though they may be better this year, they might be a better team and have a worse record.
I totally agree. I think it's the Chargers and Chiefs division win. Either it's going to come down to those two. And the Broncos and the Raiders are going to be good against the rest of the league. And they'll win their share of games, but it won't be near enough for the playoffs. Just because they're going to go, they're in that division.
So last team we're going to talk about is the Patriots. They've got them at 8.5. I look at the roster and I think about last year and I think about Mac Jones and I don't know what to really think about this team, but then I think about the coach and I think he's pissed. I think he's mad. I think he wants to prove himself once again. Gerard Mayo is still there. He's a good coach. They've got Matt Patricia back on staff. It's not like they have idiots helping Belichick. They've got Belichick and they've got, a decent staff around him. And this is year 2 for the quarterback. So I'm going to take the over on this team just because of who their quarterback is and because I love their running backs. I mean, they got James White, they got Stevenson, they got Harris. They've got those good tight ends that they love. They've got Devin Asiasi. They've got Jonnu Smith. They've got Hunter Henry. I think this team is going to be just fine. Plus, they get to play the Jets twice. And I think they're going to take it to the Dolphins, too. So I think the Patriots are going to win 10 games, in my opinion.
I think, you're talking about the greatest NFL coach of all time. He's surpassed Lombardi. You can talk about losing Josh McDaniel, but, everybody thought Charlie Weiss was the offensive genius. Then Josh McDaniel came along. Then Josh leaves and Bill O'Brien becomes the offensive genius. Then, Josh McDaniel comes back and he becomes the offensive genius. Then Tom Brady leaves and all of a sudden Mac Jones has him back in the playoffs a year later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's got to be something to do with the mad scientist. He's got a formula. He knows what he's doing up there. He knows how to get every little advantage out of every little thing. And I agree. I think they're more like a 10-win team. They're no longer the 13, 14-win team that was, strong, had a stranglehold on the NFC East when Brady went from 2001 to 2017. But they're a 10-win team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the secondary's gotten better. They've got, I know they lost Jackson, but they've got Jonathan Jones. They got Jalen Mills. They got Malcolm Butler back in the fold. They got Terrence Mitchell, Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, Devin McCourty. Jabril Peppers was added. They just have a lot of depth on that defense. And I think, with all that depth, I think it's going to work out for them.
He's the master of getting rid of a player too soon. Maybe a year too soon, but never a year too late.
Right.
I mean, when you think about when he had Ty Law as his number one cornerback, and Ty Law gets rid of Ty Law, and everybody was like, "Oh, the sky is falling," and all of a sudden, Asante Samuel's there.
Yep.
He understands how to judge talent. He understands, and I know there will come a time because it happens in every coach's career, or for most, if they don't retire at the right time. It happened to Tom Landry. I mean. It happened to Mike Ditka. It happened to a bunch of these coaches that eventually time catches up with you. And I don't know if it's mental acuity or the fact that just a matter of luck doesn't happen to you. But right now, Belichick still seems right on top of his game.
Well, it's not like they were horrible last year. They made the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. So now this guy's in year 2, and they spent the money last year, and this year they just kind of fine-tuned and kind of build through the draft. That's kind of what they like to build through the draft more so than, they're usually not the team that goes out in free agency and buys all this talent. But they did that a little bit last year, and they bought some guys, and they needed to. Once they got out from the Tom Brady contract and some of those guys that they had to move on from. But now they've kind of got who they want in place, and they kind of added the pieces they needed to, and I think they're going to be better for it.
I mean, just not to belittle the fact or be whatever, beleaguer, whatever you want to call it. If you look at it since 2001, his first 2 years without Brady, the knee injury, they won 11 games, 10 games?
Correct.
Without Brady.
Correct.
And then the year Brady departs and goes to Tampa, they win 9 games.
Yep.
So
they go 7-9. 7-9.
But they never bought him out. So he has to go to free agent route because he never goes down to the 2 or 3 wins you need for all those draft choices.
Yeah, he didn't get the number 1 pick in the draft after Tom Brady left. They still won 7 games. And honestly, if Cam Newton hadn't it's crazy to say, but if he hadn't gotten COVID, they might. He was playing pretty good before he got sick.
Yeah.
And when he came back, it was a different story. But before he got sick, he threw for 450 yards against the Seahawks, and their offense was moving pretty well. So I think they, barring all those unforeseen circumstances, they could have potentially made the playoffs that year. So I think they'll be just fine. And if I have to bet on somebody, I'm betting on him.
One thing before we go off this, what did they get the Jets at here?
They have the Jets. I haven't seen 5.5.
That's about right.
And they don't. They have the Browns. They do not have rated off the book because they have no idea who the quarterback's going to be, and so there's no number associated with the Browns right now.
I'm glad to see they didn't go crazy with the Jets because everybody around here, I hear Jet fans talking playoffs. I go, what did they get? Did they jump out of their division and go somewhere else? They still have to beat to win their division and go to the playoffs. They're going to have to either split with the Bills, split with the Patriots, or beat the Patriots twice and beat the Dolphins twice.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I looked at their schedule. I went over it, and I could see them after 10 weeks being 3-7.
Yeah, I could see that too. Their schedule is not easy, and I think this is going to be a better division than people are giving it credit for. I think the Dolphins will be, a hard out, and I think the Bills are probably the best team in the league, and then you got the Patriots as well. So I think 3 of the 4 of these teams are going to be pretty solid, and the Jets are going to be the team taking some lumps.
All right. So we got man coverage maybe coming back on Sunday.
Yeah, we're going to do the college football fantasy draft preview this weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the sleepers and give some of our audience a little bit of some pointers on who to pick up in case they're into that college football fantasy. And then we're going to also get into a little bit of recruiting and also some of the NIL stuff that's going on, because you have to talk about that if you're going to talk about college football.
All right, so 11 o'clock on Sunday morning?
Yes, sir.
All right. Nate, good to be back with you. We'll be back next week. We'll wrap up, hopefully, the NBA playoffs and get ready for NFL camps and anything else that's going on. And everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. We will see you next week.
Sounds good, buddy. Have a good one.
You too.